Hello, everyone, and welcome back to On the Kerbs IndyCar Edition. I'm your host, Nate Woods, and I am joined by two co-hosts this week. Of course, Thiemo Albers-Daly. He is always with us, but we have a special guest with us this week. We have Caitlyn Gordon with Divebomb Motorsports Magazine and Everything F1 IndyCar. Caitlyn, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. It's lovely to be here.
Very good. Well, welcome. You are from also across the pond from
Nice tie
Indianapolis.
back.
So, but Timo, how are you also, sir?
I'm very good, thank you. I was saying to you just before we hit record, everything worked out pretty well on the timing front yesterday for motorsport. It's rare when that happens. I've actually got to watch everything and nothing got compromised. And I was hoping that we would have another clean race in IndyCar so I wouldn't get nearer to that buffer of half an hour that I had. And luckily, it worked out. How are you?
There was so much racing here in America this weekend. I don't even think I got to see all of it. I'll be honest, I don't even know whether there was a NASCAR race this weekend.
There was, but don't worry, it was normal NASCAR. It wasn't too hectic.
Okay. I didn't see any bullet points or hit pieces or anything like that. So seemed like it was probably a pretty mundane race. So, but of course, it was Derby weekend here in the Midwest. So Kentucky Derby weekend's always big here in Indianapolis as well. But we also had the kickoff for the month of May for here in Indianapolis anyway. So, but outside of Indianapolis, we had IndyCar racing, of course, the Children's of Alabama IndyCar Grand Prix. Uh, let's jump into it, guys. I think it was kind of, I don't want to say this is what we've come to expect in IndyCar this season, but certainly more of the same, it seems like, from what we've seen thus far this season.
I was wondering with this race, the next race I could see it being another race where we somehow don't have any caution flags, but I was then thinking, surely we can't get through one oval without there being a caution. That's just not how those work. I
Yeah.
think we can maybe stretch it for one more race, but Indy 500, if we get through that with not a single caution, I don't know what to do with that at that point, and I don't think anyone else will.
I tell you, the start of this race really made me think that there was going to be a caution. Caitlin, what'd you think?
I also thought there was going to be a caution, especially during practice. Pretty much majority of the grids kept sliding off or hitting the barriers. So I was thinking that there could have been a caution, but ultimately it never happened.
A couple of the drivers gave it a good go at points. I think Louis Foster was the closest. I thought, oh no, we're going to
Yeah.
finally end this streak. And it's got to the weird thing of like, obviously you don't want drivers to be crashing out left, right, and centre, but it seemed weird to then really not want it because he was like, I kind of want to see how long we can eke this out for. But he
Mhm.
just managed to save it, and I just imagine the people up in the steward's office going, wait, give him a second. Let's
Yeah.
just see if he can get this back first, and then okay, no, we're good. We can keep it going.
Yeah, that was well, lap 56. And uh, for, of course, Fox was on a commercial break when that all happened. So I'm listening, well, during the commercial breaks, I'm listening to the IndyCar radio network, and they're up in their seats, like, oh, someone's off in the turn, and they're going through the grass and the gravel, and he's coming back on track. And then you're just like waiting to come out of commercial break so you can actually see a replay of it.
Mm.
But no such luck on our end. We were able to see all of that, so it worked out. But we were still kind of like, ooh, 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 in real time and not coming back going, oh, typical, they've gone to an ad break and we've missed the one thing that then causes all this.
But yeah, this was what, our third race in a row that went caution free.
Yeah. And say that damn flag in started for St. Pete ruining that perfect four streak. I was looking at it going,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Oh, yeah, no, St. Pete had that one at the very, very start.
So we are at what, 300, if my math is correct, we're at 339 laps caution free in a row now.
Yep.
Insane.
And I was just running through some stats during show prep. This is the second race in a row where we also haven't had any penalties, and second race in a row where all 27 starters finished the race.
What is going on?
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is somewhat unusual, I'd say.
would not have been able to predict that at the start of the season.
No, definitely not. We we even though there was a caution-free race, I was thinking about this on the way into the office this morning, that thinking about the domineering performance that we're seeing Alex Palou put up this season, and kind of comparing that to like the 2023 Max Verstappen run, where we saw him just literally dominate. Behind Max Verstappen that season, you saw pretty much exactly what you thought you would see from every single team. But we're not seeing that here. We're seeing a great dominating performance from Alex Palou, but it seems like everybody behind him is also showing flashes of brilliance and at different times. It's just we're we're seeing drivers that we don't normally get to see running up front, near the front, in the top 10 in points, and it's making, even though we're starting to see, we're 4 races in and we're seeing a dominating performance by one driver, it doesn't feel like it's a runaway by any means because we're still seeing great battles throughout the field.
It's a curious one, isn't it? Because it doesn't feel like a runaway in the sense that there are plenty of people behind Pillow who could take it to him, but they all seem to be taking it in turns to try
Yes.
and go after him rather than, as we said at the start of the season, like, go after him together and like figure it out later who's going to win, but just all work together first and go after him. It shouldn't just be Pillow versus everyone else. It should be, or sorry, it should be Pillow versus everyone else rather than Pillow versus Lundgaard when they call Pillow versus Kirkwood. It's like you need to work together here. And okay, the gap has increased. But yeah, it's I don't know if the battles behind it is feeling like a good distraction to so we don't notice Pillow running away with it as much.
Points wise, coming out of this race, Christian Lundgaard, of course, had a great race. Um, Finishing second, which it was a distant second, 16.2 seconds back from Alex Palou, which I think I heard on the broadcast is the uh, largest margin of victory since Scott Dixon in 2023. So um, that moves him back ahead of Kyle Kirkwood for second place in the points, but still
That
60 points
lasted long,
behind
didn't
Alex
it?
Palou. Yeah. So it just, the race itself, I felt like the pit strategies were, we talked a lot about that on this channel, is it felt fairly routine.
Yeah, I definitely do think that as well.
Yeah, we saw it was exciting to see, cars coming out of the pits on cold tires, trying to bleed back into the field, and you got a lot of really great action and passing when you combined fresh tires and warm tires or used tires, and made for some great action. That one shot that they're showing at pit exit, kind of back up the track, kind of made it was a great shot, I think, and really showed a lot of action right there as cars are leaving the pits. But there was also a lot of great action on the track. I mean, there at the end, you had uh, Rinus VK, who was making up good chunks of time on McLaughlin.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's the other side of it when you've got a dominating force like Pillow, you comparing him to Verstappen in 23, at least here we've got a lot of stuff happening behind, and there's a track like Barber where you've got these great camera angles and vantage points throughout the circuit to really show off how that's happening. It's not just coming out of the pits, it's kind of coming out of that lined crescent that you come over, what is it, turn four around that kind of area, and then turn seven, eight, nine, I think that little chicane bit that
Yeah.
is one of my favorite parts on any circuit. I think whoever designed that deserves a raise. And like you say, it was all quite close throughout. But again, I think that's the thing when you've got dominating force like Polar, as I say, you want there to be stuff going on behind. Whereas I think in F1 that year, there was stuff going on, but it didn't really feel like an awful lot was happening. Whereas at least here, it's go, okay, at least we're having a good battle for second, we're having a good battle for third. There's drivers in places that we're not used to seeing them, and that keeps it exciting a bit. And that's why load domination, for one of a better thing, is maybe not too boring because we're not kind of okay, he's got a 16-second lead, but we're not too focused on that because there's plenty of other things to keep our attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just a few other highlights from the race itself. We saw Colton Herta do Colton Herta things yet again. We
I
we
feel like you
praised
keep
him.
cursing him.
We praised him last week, last episode for having a great performance and stringing together great pit stops, and that always seems to be his downfall. And that's what happened this week yet again.
Do we just have to keep kind of piling negative things on him for him to perform well? Is this just we have to go really tough love on him in order for him to perform well?
So, yeah, I mean, Caitlyn, where do you fall on this? I mean, if you're following IndyCar, and I'm sure you've noted that that seems to be the real weak link on that Andretti team with Colton Herta.
Yeah, it is pretty much a weekly occurrence now that something always ends up wrong with him, especially in pit lane. Something will always end up happening. Even though he maybe have like a good qualifying where he starts up really high up and you think this is a race, he's going to get that win, he's going to get that podium, and then it just kind of falls apart. And I do feel very bad for him.
Yeah,
It's
it
Colton
just
Herta our Ferrari.
Yeah. I
yeah,
think
it
very
just
valid.
every week it just seems like, with the exception of the previous race before this one, it's just something happens in the pits, and that's what's beating him, not just this season, but the last couple seasons. And it's I think it's past the point of being embarrassing for him at this point, even though
I
this
go back
week,
to the point of it's not Palou versus everyone else. It's Palou versus everyone else except Herta because Herta's just against the pit lane. He's like, once I can get this order, then I'll come and join this fight, but I gotta nail this first.
yeah, he's only competing against himself and his pit crew, I think, at this point. So, so does anybody else have any highlights from the race itself that they want to touch
Just
on?
love this track. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
every year we come here and some. I mean, like I was saying, it's a caution-free race, but because there's so much going on and it's such a fun track to go around, you don't mind as much, and it's all nice. And I think you worry when there's no caution or anything, it's going to be a boring race because you go, oh well, you've not had penalties as you say either. There's no caution flag. There's nothing majorly going wrong in the pit stops. You had a couple of moments, but nothing calamitous. And you go, oh, it must have been pretty dull then. Like, no, you're quite happy and content to sit there and watch the whole thing going on and it's ebb and flow. And once again, I love the rule that I really think they should bring into F1 of unless the entire field has lapped you, you don't have to get out of the way. So you've really got to fight the cars when you get to them on track. And that can be really easy, as DiFrancesco made it at one point, or it can be a bit tricky, as several of the other drivers pointed out. And
Yeah.
I quite like that because, like, yeah, you need a race, go for it. It doesn't matter if you're maybe going against Alex Palou, but you're going to be let down. It's kind of like, well, you're probably not going to get a race normally, so take the opportunity and see what you can learn from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do think one of my highlights of the race was Christian Lundgaard's overtake on Scott McLaughlin. That dive that he
17
did
radio.
was very great. It was definitely the highlight of the race for me. It was so good.
No,
So
that was really nicely done and such a smooth one. I think Paul Buxton commentary, I can picture him just getting out of his seat, just really excited for it. He seems
yeah,
so amped to be there this year. It's lovely.
as we mentioned, this is another caution-free race for us. This is the first, or they mentioned this on the broadcast, the tail end of the broadcast here, that this was the first time since 1986 that IndyCar has had three caution-free races in a row.
Records you didn't even know existed until we start going after them.
That's right. Timo, I think you added this that this was the longest lap streak of green flag continuous racing laps
Yeah,
that we've
because
had.
this is what I was thinking when I saw your thing about three races. I was like, oh, it could have been four if it wasn't for St. Pete, but because of them streak restarting on lap two of
Yeah,
of St. Pete until now, it's the longest continuous streak on number of laps at least. So I think in one of the Fox Sports breaks, we obviously Sky Sports over here, we keep it going the whole time. The commentary there, one of the questions sent in was when was the last time we had this many green flag laps in one go? He goes, that would be now. We've never done this before. We're still go. We don't know the answer to this because it hasn't finished yet. We'll let you know if it finishes at any point.
Yeah, so yeah, we've got some chances for some caution flags coming up later this month,
If
I
there's
think.
nothing that happens this month, I'll be amazed.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, I'll be there to see if it happens or not. So
You'll be doing a Star Wars reference. You'll just be at the side of the track throwing stuff into the circuit, like, come on, something.
I've been there for races like that, and I do not want to uh, go through that again. 2005 F1 Grand Prix. Yeah, don't want to
Like,
see stuff
yeah,
getting
there's
thrown out
probably a few
there.
reasons why they're throwing things up there.
Yeah. Let's get into the team by team analysis. Penske, I think pretty much had where you starts, where you finish kind of weekend.
Yeah, it's moving in the right direction for them, but it still feels like they're lacking a little bit. I mean, McLaughlin, yeah, third consecutive podium at this track, great. Power, as was mentioned in the commentary, I think he does look like he's really driving well and wanting that contract extension. I think it's kind of mad that he is out of a contract at the end of the season. I'll be interested to see if Penske don't take him, who will, because he'd be mad not to at least investigate it. Um, Newgarden, you can't rule him out because he did this last year and then goes and wins the Indy 500. So I'm maybe after the Indy 500, I'll pile on him a bit more, but he's not having the start of the season that we're used to him. And I think as much as they're moving in the right direction, I feel free to disagree with either of you, but the fact that both Power and Newgarden were beaten by VK and Dale Coyne doesn't look great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Caitlin, where are you at with Penske this weekend?
Um, I think Scott McLaughlin had a great weekend. He's been kind of good majority of the season, but just echoing that about Joseph Newgarden, he's had a difficult one. Apart from the podium at the start of the season, he's kind of really struggled and not been as probably as good as he wanted to have been. So I think he probably might come back in the Indy 500s. I have a feeling that he's just gonna spawn out of nowhere and get his third Indy 500. And then as for willpower, yeah, it's his fifth finishing position in a row, so it's quite a decent-ish.
Consistent.
Yeah, it's consistent.
Yeah,
Maybe not the result that he would have wanted. He probably would have wanted to push further and really just solidified a better result. Um, but yeah.
It comes across with willpower that he has really interesting races at the moment, but then, as you say, finishes exactly where he started, and you go, what did I actually achieve here? And it's a bit probably head scratching and frustrating from his point of view because your willpower. I don't know if you saw, by the way, Nate, but Kate and I were talking a bit before the race, and in first practice, Scott McLaughlin obviously had his little oopsie daisy moment. I don't know if you saw that.
mhm.
But did you catch the comment from Will Buxton that I'm putting into my workbook for IndyCar for this year? No, Will Buxton was saying he was just out there testing the structural integrity of his underpants. Thought you'd appreciate
Very
that.
good. Yes, very nice, very nice. Yeah, I think, this is kind of the race that obviously leads us into the month of May here in Indianapolis. And this is your opportunity to carry some momentum. Obviously, Penske had, you know, they had Indianapolis figured out last year. And it'll be interesting to see if they can take this momentum, which is kind of strange to say that a third place, fifth place, and 10th place finish is momentum. But I think with the season that they've had so far, I think that's the best momentum that you can go with. So
It's kind of like some of the teams down the list that we won't have much to say on. At least you're not crashing out. At least you're not getting penalties. You're kind of just getting in and getting the job done. And yeah, we'd prefer you to be a bit higher up, but it would be worse, which is not necessarily the
yeah,
best praise we want to give, but at least it's true.
yeah, I think probably the team that had probably one of the best performances of the weekend was Arrow McLaren. You have uh, Nolan Siegel making the fast six in qualifying. I mean, I did not have that on my bingo card for for this race. But and of course, Christian Lundgaard having a great run and finishing second. And Pedal Ward, they didn't talk about him a whole lot on the broadcast, but he finishes in sixth place. So
I kind of echo that. I definitely do think it's been a great weekend for our McLaren, especially with Nolan Siegel getting his first Fast Six and his best career finish. Well, qualifying position, qualifying position. Um, but hats off to Christian Lundgaard as well for getting his third consecutive podium. Now putting himself a bit closer to Alex Palou, although maybe not as close as he's want to be, being 60 points behind. But it's very good from what he's done. He's been very consistent over the course of the season, especially in his first season at Arrow McLaren. He's really been a great driver. Pat Awards, yeah, I didn't really see him very much on the broadcast. He wasn't really focused on very much, but he was very consistent and at least finished sixth.
you mentioned Lundgaard trying to catch Palou. It's like it's hard to string together all of these podiums and try to catch the guy in front of you when the guy in front of you keeps finishing better than you.
Yes.
So it's like Kirkwood last time was saying, it's like you can still do everything perfectly, and if he's in there in second, what can you do against that? It's kind of
exactly.
you've won, you've dominated, but you still can't beat him. It's kind of what can you do? But I think going back to Nolan Siegel, he needed that in qualifying. We were talking about him obviously throughout the start of the season, mate, and saying he does need something to bring him back in a little bit. And okay, he didn't finish as high as he wanted, but still in the top 10. That's really good for him. He knocked Lundgaard out to get into the Fast Six. That's just a step in the right direction. That's all we kind of really wanted. We don't need him to be on the podium. That'd be great, but we don't need that for him to show his value. We just need him to prove that he is improving. Award, yeah, like you say, Caitlyn, he just had a bit of an anonymous race, and you kind of look at the result. And go, how did you get there? It's a little bit like Will Power last time in Long Beach. You go, I was watching this. How have you got here?
Yeah, I
But
have no
again,
idea how he got there.
yeah, it's just kind of again, you're rubbing your eyes and you go, no, I have been watching this. We've just not seen it. He's off in FP2. I want to mention that quickly, just because that was a decent shunt. And then they pull the car out, and I want to know what the hell they're using for the protective barriers there, because there was virtually no damage to that car. And I'm going, why are we not using that everywhere else? That's brilliant stuff. Yeah, and you kind of took my point earlier, Nate, about Lundgaard, because obviously he's now second in the championship, and I was sort of wondering, is the fight already over for P1? Is the fight just for P2 now? Can actually anyone take it to him? Because, like you say, it's difficult to beat the man when you're doing everything you possibly can, and it's still somehow not enough. But I think with Lundgaard, I'm just happy to see him really coming into his own. I noticed this with him during the race before he even got to second. It was, I think, definitely after that overtaking McLaughlin that you mentioned, Caleb, and well with Dennis Hauger in Indy NXT. It's these two drivers who are both in Formula Two, both showed a really good amount of potential getting into that point and then just weren't able to capitalize on it. And I both thought deserved a bit of a shot in F1, especially if other drivers were that I wasn't too convinced about. So to see them over here really nailing it, both in their respective categories, it's really good to see, because it makes me think I actually know what I'm talking about, for one, which is always helpful. But then just to see them do it and get comfortable enough and proves why McLaren went over there. Because I think you had some doubts, Nate, at the start of the season why they've gone for Lundgaard. It seems a bit of an interesting choice, but he's definitely earning your respect now, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So Andretti Global, we had a great qualifying effort by Herta, finishing seventh. We already talked about his kind of snafu in pit lane, which has kind of become the norm for him. Kyle Kirkwood coming off of win in Long Beach, qualifying eighth, finishing 11th outside the top 10. And Marcus Ericsson just not able to put anything together. Now I'm going to throw this to you, Timo, because your show notes here, I think maybe it's lost in translation. I'm going to allow you to explain what you have here.
I think it's pretty straightforward, but it just felt like watching them just for me felt like jumping onto a bicycle without the seats fixed onto it. It's just painful. It's unbelievably painful. And Herta, as we mentioned, if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. And like you say, it's kind of you just wonder what the hell he's got to do because he's going. I might be perfect on track, but I just can't bloody get there because the pit lane keeps getting me. Um, if it was a kind of slapstick comedy film from the 80s, something incredibly random would just happen to him at all of the wrong occasions, and you just have to shrug it off and go, well, of course that's happened to him. Kirkwood, frustrating off Long Beach because we thought again maybe this is someone who can take it. If we can't have some of the older drivers who can't have Dixon or Power take it to Palou, then let's get Kirkwood and Lundgaard in. One of them goes for it, and then P11, and then Ericsson. Does he think he's back in Formula One? Is that what's going wrong? And he's
Well,
just performing like he did there, or what is going on there?
he
He's
hasn't
he's
caught his
good.
car on fire yet, so
Don't challenge him.
yeah.
I think Herta's main battle definitely is the pit lane. That's just his season battle this season. And Kirkwood, I definitely did think that he was gonna carry the momentum into this race and maybe put another challenge in towards Alex Palou and really battle it out at the front, but he qualified not that great. And then through the race, I think he had suspected gearbox issues.
We were talking about momentum going into May here in Indianapolis, and this is a team that definitely needed something to hang their hat on to try to carry momentum. And I don't think that they made it. I mean, it was disappointing, I feel like, all around for them. You're adding a fourth car with Marco for the 500, and Marco has not proven to be that much of a contender the last, well, 10 years in Indianapolis. So
Yeah,
it's going to
it's
be uh, interesting to watch them, I think. I hope they don't have a milk toast month, and but they at
I'd
least
quite like to
want.
come back to the next couple of races, not having to come up with some other amusing analogy of what it was like to watch them. I'd like to be able to praise them, but they're making it
Yes.
difficult at the moment because I think Kirkwood was saying after Long Beach, if I'm winning, it's painful that Palou is still second. That's what you need to be doing if he's winning. You need to at least be in the top five, or in this case, at least get in the top 10. So, okay, yeah, you've lost some points, but at least the gap is manageable still. And
Yeah.
P11 ain't that.
Yeah, Chip Ganassi Racing, obviously, Alex Palou winning from the pole. Scott Dixon having an amazing run. I just we can talk about him here in just a second. And then Kiffin Simpson actually starting in the top 10. Great qualifying effort for him. I think he just got outmatched on track. But I want to talk about Scott Dixon. I think everybody else does as well.
If
With
only you could have qualified better, you know,
exactly,
what
exactly.
could have
And,
done.
I mean, what he could have done had he started just another, mid pack, not at the back of the pack, but just mid pack. Let's say if he could have started, 15th or 16th. And, uh, with the way that he was able to get around cars, get through the field, it wasn't merely through pit strategy for him. That was just, he
It was
got
just
out
Scott
on the
Dixon being
track and
Scott
just
Dixon.
Scott Dixon doing Scott Dixon things. Exactly. Yeah.
I'd kind of
Um,
written on my notes that Palou was doing Palou things, but Dixon, you could say exactly the same thing. And it seemed a little bit not amusing necessarily, but funny that him and Simpson essentially swapped positions from qualifying to the race. It's kind of like if I'm going to do well, one of you's got to be sacrificed for that, and that was Simpson in this case because I'm not entirely sure what happened to him if he had some issue or if he just wasn't able to get it together. But it could have been a much better race for the team as a whole. And again, a little bit like last year, we'd always be saying, well, at least Palou's doing well, and you could just hide the other four drivers.
yeah. Yeah. Caitlyn, where are you at with Chip Ganassi this weekend?
Um, well, of course, Alex Palou had an amazing weekend with the widest win margin since 2023 and building that gap up already to unlock the third lap where he was about 1.1 seconds ahead of Scott McLaughlin already by the third lap, and then he kept building it and building it and building it until he finally got to the 16 seconds ahead when he crossed the line. Um, yeah, he's had an amazing race. Scott Dixon as well. Hats off to him. I know he had a difficult qualifying, getting knocked out very early on, and starting from 26th, but moving up 14 positions. It was a great comeback and a really good thing to see. Yeah, Kevin Simpson, apart from like the slow stop, not really too sure what happened with him from dropping all those positions. Be a disappointing one for him, definitely. Hopefully he can bounce back in the next one.
Yeah.
I think after the month of May, it's going to be interesting to have a look at some of these drivers like Simpson to see who'll have had kind of not massive gaps between all the races and on-track action at that point. So we're always talking about carrying momentum forward, but that can be the same with negative momentum. You can end up spiraling into a bit of a thing, or can you pivot halfway through if that's what's happening to you and switch it up a bit. And drivers like him and a few others that we'll talk about later on, they need to switch things up because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of points over the next few weeks, and that's not necessarily going to end your season, but it's not going to end your season either in terms of that's going to be quite difficult to recover from, even if you did manage to somehow get into the top five for every remaining race on the calendar. So that's going to be quite interesting to watch.
So a couple teams that are probably carrying the wrong momentum into the month of May, but I think are probably going to be okay. First off, AJ Foyt Racing with Santino Ferrucci and David Malukas. We talk about momentum into the month of May, but we're also talking about the time in the schedule where we're switching away from all just road course racing to mixing in oval tracks. And with Ferrucci and Malukas, these are two drivers that traditionally are quite a bit better on oval tracks. I don't think either one of them had a horrible weekend. Timo, you noted that we did get to see Ferrucci on the highlight reel. Amazing save that
Yeah,
he had.
yeah, this is why I was glad that you have your race recap notes at the top of our Word document because I was thinking, what can I say about this team? They didn't have a terrible weekend, but it wasn't great by any stretch of imagination. But Ferrucci is a pretty good driver, and again, he's another one of these ones where we just need to give him a bit better machine. I said it like we're running the teams for him, but we need to give him something better to work with so that he can unlock her potential a bit more. And that save on lap 72, I think it was, where that could have been a heck of a way to bring a caution out and end that streak. But he saved it and the replay, because I think I missed it initially, and then I just heard the commentators on what was that? And then you see the replay. Oh, that was a very neat save there. But aside from that, there's just not much. I think at least on my end of it for me to say about it. I don't know if you've got anything on them, Caitlyn.
I'm the exact same about the going away when it happened, and all I just heard was the commentary kind of just like say there was a big moment, and of course I decided to leave.
One moment we look away.
Um, but yeah, I don't really have very much to say about them. They had an okay-ish weekend. They weren't really focused on too much apart from that big incident. David Malukas did very well in practice, topping the timing sheets, which he was very happy with. But apart from that, yeah, it's not the best, but not the worst.
Yeah, I think, at the beginning of the season, AJ Foyt Racing was one of these dark horse teams that Timo and I talked about being competitive. They were going to be competitive. And, both Ferrucci and Malukas have zero top tens, zero top fives, zero laps led. But I don't think that exactly tells the tale of what I really meant when I said they're going to be a dark horse for this
It's like
season.
Will Power finishing P5 consistently. You go, that doesn't describe how his race went.
Right.
There is more to this. Trust us.
And we're like I said, we're getting into the time of year where I think this team in particular is really going to blossom, really going to start racking up some good stats. Right now you've got Santino Ferrucci's in 15th place and Maluka's in 18th place in the point standings. And I feel that that is no way indicative of where they're going to be in 3 months after we get, 8 oval course races under our belt.
Well, this is what I'm thinking as well for Juncos Hollinger because Conor Daly, we know
Yeah.
what kind of track he's good at. And
Yeah.
if that doesn't materialize, I'll be very surprised there because, again, they had a race where there's not an awful lot that I feel like I can say there other than that they finished exactly where they qualified, which
Yeah.
is fine, I suppose, but you didn't really see much of them. They didn't have, but again, as I said at the top of this, for some of these teams, that's fine because it means that you didn't have anything go wrong because we would have seen it or we would have heard about it. So you just kind of got on with it, got the experience, and for Daly in particular, we know his speciality is ovals. So courses that are not ovals, he needs as much time and practice on them as he can, so that should he be there next year, which I think he should be, he can then hopefully kind of blossom a bit more, as you say, and it's looking to the it's a long term game plan for him, but with ovals for him, if he doesn't translate there, then I'll be very surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And it's just, you're right, Timo, there's not a whole lot that you can say about a team that finishes exactly where they started. I mean, it's really
It's
just
the
kind of the
opposite of
best.
willpower in that sense. There literally that is all there was to your race. You started,
Yeah.
that is it.
Yeah. Yeah. Meyer Shank Racing. Yeah, Marcus Armstrong, you know, had great momentum in the first part of the race and just we kind of just some kind of fall off.
So did I see correctly? He did lead a couple of laps at some point. I did.
Yeah.
Did I see that? Because
Yes.
then I was looking at the result and going, I swear he was up there at one point. That can't just be pit stop, surely.
Yeah, he had 6 laps led. I think, let's see, that brings his total laps led for the season up to 10.
It's 10 more than I thought.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too.
yeah, finishing 17th after running up front. And then Felix Rosenquist, I think, just
He's another driver
would
there.
have, should have been better for
Yeah,
him.
it's a little bit like Mark Ericsson for me. I put them in the same category a lot at the moment. We know that there is a really good driver in there, but my word, they're hiding them well at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not much we can say about that team other than, we're coming up to the Indy 500. They're going to be bringing Helio Castroneves back out, which obviously, is
We'll talk about you when you've got another driver.
yeah, yeah. So we'll bring out a 4-time winner on the team and see how they can do. So Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. I think that's a team that we probably have some things to talk about.
Shall I go first, Caitlyn? I feel like I could go on for a while if I'm not careful, so I'll let you two to go first before I get into this.
Yeah, it's the main thing I definitely would say was Louis Foster. He had a good qualifying, starting 12th. However, dropped 14 positions, finished 26th. And then near the end of the race, he kind of went off the track at the last corner and then kept going and then rejoined the track at a little bit of a dangerous time when I think it was Alex Palou and Robert Schwartzman were coming in at the same time and they just narrowly missed out on what
Not
could have
how he meant for you to take Palou out of the equation.
been. Yeah, it's very narrowly missed out on what could have been a very big incident. So that was I think it's definitely one to forget for Louis Foster and look to see if he can bounce back in the next couple of races. But yeah, Graham Rahal, honestly, I didn't see him very much on the broadcast. Seeing that he finished in 14th, yeah, that's decently good. I had no idea, did not see him very much during the broadcast, like at all. So seeing him down there, yeah. And then Devlin DeFrancesco qualified 27th, finished 24th. Disappointing, not great, but yeah.
Yeah, this is a team that for many years has kind of been trying to find their way. And when it was announced that they won the Louis Foster lottery and being able to sign him and out of Indy Next, Uh, I kind of had higher hopes for this team, and I know it takes a little while to get your footing. As a champion coming from Indy Next into IndyCar, sometimes those drivers are ready to punch a ticket and ready to go, and sometimes they need some time to develop. And we're seeing flashes of brilliance from Lewis Foster. Lewis Foster, we're qualifying 12th, great starting position, but I'm very surprised we didn't see a penalty come his way for his track reentry.
Yes.
If that's not an unsafe re-entry onto a track, a live green track, I don't know what is.
That's not a challenge, by the way. Anyone, any
No,
IndyCar drivers listening.
no, definitely not a challenge. That could have been so much worse than what we saw. Um, I mean, just you pop back on a track and you look in your mirror, and all of a sudden you see two cars directly behind you. Your instinct is to maybe jerk that wheel, and you don't know what could have happened. I mean, we got very, very lucky with that incident. Graham Rahal, it's unfortunate they didn't get to talk about him during the broadcast because he had, I think, probably the best race of his season. Finishing
The irony.
14th doesn't sound like it should be his best race of the season, but absolutely, I think it was a great finish for him. And Devlin DeFrancesco, that's another driver that when we've learned that he had signed for a full season with Rahal Letterman, we're like, okay, great. Was he's a capable driver and can bring some energy to that team that maybe they were lacking. But I don't know if he's just lost the spark or if it's just a result of this team not being a competitive ride for him. But just unfortunate for the team all around. I think uh, other than Rahal, I think Graham did the best he could with what he's given.
It is that kind of mixture, though, isn't it, of best with what you're given, and they're still trying to find their way after however many years, and you think maybe you're going down the wrong path. Because Foster, I can forgive a little bit for most of the race because he's still a rookie, and like you say, sometimes it takes a bit longer to bed in. But with the other two, I'm not sure what the excuse is. But like you say, it may have been Rahal's best race of the season. We didn't see it, but well, I'll take your word for it. But I still think if you're the people running the team, which awkwardly Graham somewhat is, I still wonder at what point you start looking outside the current drivers for who to sign next year, or is it looking at something other than the driver because it's not working, whatever it is they're doing. And I don't know if they need to switch out drivers and get someone in there and kind of do what ECR have done. And you bring Rossi and you go, okay, with the right driver, we can get some good stuff. We can develop the car really nicely. Segue for a second. Or do we need to switch up the car entirely because that maybe then can unlock the potential that the drivers that we've got assigned for us should have? Because again, Rahal, lots of experience. Foster, keen and ready to learn. DiFrancesco, like you said, we were happy to see him at the start of the season, and now he's kind of just the only time we talk about him is whenever Scotty Mack's shouting at him for doing something.
Yeah,
And you go,
yeah,
that's not like what we brought you here for. So it's quite frustrating, and they don't have what Chip Ganassi has and Alex Palou, and that if you have that weekend, at least we've got one driver to paper over the cracks. It's kind of like, no, we see you, and that's awkward for you because we're going to talk about you then.
yeah. A team that I think has a great shot at carrying momentum into Indianapolis is Ed Carpenter Racing. Alexander Rossi having a fantastic run. I mean, all season for him. I feel like people sleep on him. Uh,
Agreed.
I mean, uh, he showed great promise early in his career. 2016 Indy 500 winner, and also other highlights in the early part of his career, and then it kind of tapered off. And I think we're seeing a resurgence for him. He has found, I think he's found the right team to be with, and Ed Carpenter Racing obviously has. Uh, I mean, they Indy is, I think, their best track, and to have that combination of Alexander Rossi coming in to that team, bringing his talents, and now having momentum carrying him into the month of May. I think this might be a dark horse for this month. At the very least, I think we can probably see him starting real close to the front of the field. Those Ed Carpenter racing cars have always shown that they are in a lot of cases the cream of the crop when it comes to qualifying for the Indy 500. So, but at this race in particular, I mean, starting 15th and finishing in the top 10 and eighth place, a great way to get momentum and going in to the month of May here in Indy. But Christian Rasmussen, also, I'd say decent weekend, qualifying 17th and finishing 15th.
Yeah, it's awkward when you've got someone like Rossi as a teammate, and you go, "I was doing all right actually." If you just want to look at me for a second, but I think yeah, you two are saying that people do sleep on Rossi, and I am a bit guilty of that. But I can now see this season in particular why Rossi is held in such high regard, because I could never really see that when he was driving for Arrow McLaren. I don't know if I came in at the wrong time into IndyCar for he'd already established himself, but I've missed all of that. So he'd already been taken to a top team, and then it was maybe not working out as well as it should have done. But now that he's in a team where less is expected in some ways, he's showing what he's capable of a little bit like Carlos Sainz and the Williams, if you want that kind of a comparison. It's, okay, how good are you? Because if we give you a lesser car and you can still drag some performance out of it, then okay, you might know what you're doing.
Well, that's a great comparison.
Doing here.
Yeah.
I do what I can for you, Nate.
I agree with you about Alexander Rossi. I do think people like to overlook him, but it's nice to see he's starting to get a bit more recognition, and especially this race where he didn't maybe have a great qualifying in 15th, but he moved up 5 positions in the first lap and then 9 positions on lap 4. So he was moving up quite a lot and he had an excellent race. I'm on your side as well, Nate. I think he's definitely going to be a dark horse in the Indy 500s. He's going to start up pretty high, and I do kind of have a prediction that he could be the winner if it's not Joseph Newgarden. But he's had a pretty good race. So, and then Christian Rasmussen, not much to say. It's a very decent result. Quiet race, but a good result nonetheless.
Another driver that had a great effort with a mid-tier or back-tier team, obviously, is Rinus VeeKay with Dale Coyne Racing. Qualified in the Fast Six and finished 4th. And actually, I think he made the highlight reel for his efforts we mentioned at the end of the race, catching Scott McLaughlin. I think was probably just a lap or two short of being
it's
able
just
to
another example of just a few more laps, please. Come on. Let's
just
see if you can do it.
Make the race 92 laps next year. Let's see what happens. So, and that's a team
to give you another comparison for F1, especially from this weekend, it felt for me like Alex Albon was for the Williams. It's like, how the hell are you in P5 in a Williams? That's just incredible. And VeeKay there, P4 in a Dale Coyne, you're going, I don't know how you managed that, but well bloody done.
Yeah, he is definitely a driver that, he was the last driver signed for the year. I mean, we didn't even know Dale Coyne was going to be racing a full season until a month before the season started, when they announced that.
And even he was only 2
coming.
weeks after that,
Yeah,
we're going to do a full season, but we've only got one driver. What are you doing?
And then the week before the season started, like, okay, we've signed Rinus VeeKay, and we kind of were scratching our heads like, why are you making this announcement so close to the start of the season? Like, it's just like you're going to throw him in with the Sharks and see what happens. And he's swimming. I mean, 12th in points right now. You look at, who's around him. I mean, he's in a tie with Joseph Newgarden in the points.
You teed me up nicely, because I was just thinking, like you say, he wasn't announced until just before St. Pete. He's already beating Penske drivers on pace, and I just wonder, will he replace one of them next year at the team?
Yeah. I mean, realistically, this is a tryout for him to get one of these seats. I mean, there's going to be seats in these bigger teams that are going to become available. I mean, I don't want to say Will Power's going to be out at Team Penske next year, but
That'd be a hell of a way to celebrate the technical alliance. We're going to swap you with one of the
Yeah.
Penske drivers.
But I mean, you look at where drivers are sitting in the points right now, and I mean, there's a lot of drivers, good drivers with good teams that are probably going to be out looking in at the end of the season. And I mean, Renus is putting up great runs that are going to catch a lot of people's eyes when it comes to or
too.
Jacob Abel that finishing last. We
It's a little
we
bit
can
like Rasmussen. It's kind of awkward when your teamate does so well and you're kind of like, I'm also here, but I don't know if
yeah,
you want to talk about me or not, but I do exist.
yeah, and I think that's just um, we talked about Jacob Abel last season and where his money was going to go, whether it was going to be they were going to find a team somewhere to pay for him to run, or if his father was just going to start his own team and bring his son with him. But you know, we'll see where we go the rest of the year with him, and if it's indeed maybe his father buys Dale Coyne Racing, maybe his father starts his own team. I don't think we'll see Jacob at Dale Coyne next season, though.
No, not at this rate. I don't think it's always interesting to see how Indy next drivers step up into IndyCar, and obviously Louis Foster had such a big gulf in points back to Jacob Webber, but then Jacob Webber had a decent cushion for third, if I remember correctly. So kind of not sure where to put him in the overall hierarchy of it because when you take Louis Foster out of it, he's also very dominant. But then they both have very pretty seasons so far in very different ways. But he's a driver that just saying earlier about momentum, he needs to find a way to switch things up this month if
Mm.
he wants to make an impression because it's all building obviously to the 500. And as much as you'd love a good result in every race, if you're going to only get a good result in one race, you want it to be the 500 because that's the one you'll get remembered for. It's why we forgave Newgarden last year for having such a terrible start to the year. But you go, well, fair
Yeah,
enough. At least you won the 500. I'm not saying Jacob Abe was going to go and win the 500. I'm not that bold. Although I'd like to see the odds on that for betting and maybe put $1 on it. But I think, yeah, if he has a good couple of races, but then watches it in the 500, that is potentially him done then for a good while because everyone's going to remember, oh yeah, Jacob Webb was the guy that watched it in the 500, and you'd rather do terribly up to then and then switch it if you're going to. But it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out.
yeah. Caitlyn, what where are you at with Renus VK? Obviously, we know that he's doing wonderful things with a car that is not used to it.
Mhm. I think he's a really great driver, and this race kind of just solidified it. From the notes that I got, it was Rinus VK's best result since July 2022 at Iowa. And the other statistic I got was it was Dale Coyne's best finish since 2020. So what Rinus did at the race was incredible, especially getting into the Fast Six as well. He did really well over the course of the weekends. I know in practice he had a few slips and like slides like many others, but he really did bounce back after that issue that he had in pit lane with the wheel nut on lap 66.
Mhm.
But then bouncing back and then trying to fight McLaughlin for the last bit on the podium, which was incredible to see. So it'll be good to see how they kind of build on from this. If Venus VK can do more good results like this, especially going into the Indy 500, we'll see.
Well, another thing to
Cool.
keep in mind with Renus VK is our next race is the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, and he is a former race winner there.
Yes. So it'll be interesting to see how that all materializes next weekend.
Yeah.
Um,
Our final team also I feel like it's very hard to say anything about, and that's Prema. I mean,
mhm.
they
Yeah, I'd
just
kind of just put the thing of, like I was saying earlier, some teams, at least they didn't do badly. And for PREMA, you're probably quite glad that nothing happened because they're used to some bad luck this season of the most random sort. So at least they got a clean race and they got experience on the board for both drivers. And it does feel very much like a foundation year of let's learn the ropes and hope that this is what we wanted from the start of the season in some ways. But now we're kind of restarting it in a little bit, and I hope we've not cursed them. accordingly for next weekend and the rest of the month. But it's again, like, if nothing bad's going to happen, or sorry, if nothing's good going to happen, then at least nothing bad's going to happen, we'll take it.
Yeah, I think this is a team that, when it was announced, what, a year ago that PREMA was coming to IndyCar, especially for you, Timo, who, this is a household name overseas. Here in Indianapolis, we're like, PREMA, what are we
Who are
supposed to
these
expect?
guys?
And you kind of had to fill me in on what I should be expecting. And
I wish I hadn't
uh,
now.
yeah, this is a team, with Cal Milot qualifying 16th, finishing P23. Robert Schwartzman, finishing 25th. Both a lap down. Um, I think with the resources this team has available to it, we all expected them to be at least a little bit better. I mean, we all know that Callum Ilott is uh, he's a great driver that deserves to be in better than bottom tier equipment. And unfortunately, I think that's where we're seeing him this year. I mean, I know I know we're only 4 races into the season, but for the Prema cars to be in 23rd and 24th in the point standings, the only full-time teams that they are beating are two drivers from Rahal Letterman and a Dale Coyne racing car. Um, Not exactly where
Could be
we I think
worse.
picked them. It could only be mildly worse, I feel like.
Let me
So
have something kind of silver lining here, mate.
yeah. Maybe they'll maybe they've got some tricks up their sleeve for Indianapolis, but and maybe Robert Schwartzman, who has never seen an oval competitively before, maybe he can surprise us all, and we get him on a short track like Milwaukee or Iowa or something. Maybe he'll prove us all wrong. Who knows?
It's going to be something that's very interesting to talk about at the end of the season when we have all the data available to us, because, like we say, it's only 4 races into the season, but again, you have an expectation, but again, you're new, so you're kind of experienced drivers, but rookies to the series. You don't really know what to do with them, so it's disappointing, but you also feel like it's maybe Ferrari thing for this year is they're just too much expectation, and you forget that they are Ferrari. Whereas Prema, obviously, they don't have that, but they have a good stock history in everything else that they do. But obviously, it's their first time in IndyCar, so you go, how long do we give them for this? But again, maybe they get to the ovals and they're all Connor Dailies, and you go, oh, this is where they're coming strong.
Yeah, there was a lot of expectation surrounding around Prema. I know there was like a lot of excitement with the team joining, especially recruiting two former Formula Two drivers, especially Callum Ilott. Everybody wanted to see Callum Ilott back into IndyCar because he's a great driver. And then recruiting in a rookie as well. So there was a lot of expectations. And as you said, way too many, just like Ferrari and F1. And it's not paid
It's our
off just
fault.
yeah. It's not paid off just yet. Maybe, yeah, this is the foundation year. They're going to build up to something greater next year. They're just using this year as maybe experience gaining and getting to terms with the IndyCar and stuff like that.
You can melt an engine cover. I didn't know this. Excellent. We'll take that down in the notes and we'll figure out what to do with that for next year.
Yeah, just experimenting on things every race. But
Hmm.
hopefully they get a bit better. They kind of get up in the points a bit more, but I do think this is just getting to terms with the series, and then they'll build onto it in the next couple of years where they might become a consistent runner. But for right now, it's not been what anybody thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, Caitlin, one thing that we do here at the end of our episodes is we have our hot and not segment, and where we kind of talk about who we think had a great weekend, who didn't have such a great weekend. Who did you have as your hot driver for the weekend?
I had Christian Lundgaard. Um, I think he's had a really great weekend, just building on from his past performances, getting another podium, and maybe not inching towards Palou a bit more in the standings, but becoming a bit more of a title contender, well, the closest title contender to Alex Palou, basically. And he had a really strong weekend, especially from starting in seventh, getting knocked out by his teammate, and then coming up and then finishing in second. It was great to see, and I think this is only just the start. Obviously, again, we are only 4 races in, but I think it's going to build up and up, and he's going to be a constant, consistent runner at the front with the stuff that we've seen from him already.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I think Alexander Rossi, that was a great run for him. Gets him into the top 10 in points. And we talked about being able to carry momentum into the month of May, and this is going to be exciting to see him for the next several weeks here in Indianapolis. Uh, Timo, who was your hot driver for the weekend?
Got to be Rinus VK because it's a performance of why we love motorsport so much.
Yeah.
It's the driver we're not expecting to be there, and he is not only there, but he's chasing down Scott McLaughlin towards the end, and you go, "Oh, that would have been fun to see." Because when do we get to see that? Never. So I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to put Renus VK down as my hot driver, but I saw
You
you'd
got there
already put him in
first.
the show notes. You got there first, but
Yeah.
I think we all have. I mean, I think all three of us are right. All three of these drivers, VK, Rossi, and Lundgaard, had fantastic weekends. As far as not hot, I think this one was actually probably a little bit harder to dissect. Timo,
Went for
who
Carl
was not hot?
Kirkwood. And not just because I put him in my fancy IndyCar team last week, not just because of that, although it didn't help. Although I put Rinus VK in and that worked a charm. I was looking for a driver last minute. I was like, I don't have much money. Who do I put in? VK, that will do. Oh, inspired choice. But yeah, Kirkwood just after the back of Long Beach, out of the top 10, bad qualifying, and you just go, what happened, man? Why? Why did you do this to me? So
Yeah,
it's a shame because I would have hoped that if he wasn't winning, as I said earlier, at least try and finish in the top five so he can keep that gap manageable to Palou.
yeah, yeah. It's I think it's kind of funny. You somebody that qualified 18th and finished 11th is your not hot driver,
Because
just strictly based on
expectations.
he was our last race winner before coming here. But for me, it was the Prema team. We talked about them, about the season that we hoped they would have versus the season they are having, and I think both those drivers um, really just showed that. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to go with it. I just it's just kind
There's
of
work to be done.
there's work to be done, and they are not doing it. So for me, uh, that's a hard weekend for them. Caitlin, where are you at?
Louis Foster is definitely why not this weekend. As we've already touched upon, it was definitely just a weekend to forget. You know, just that rejoining very dangerously and then dropping all those positions and finishing just so low. It's been a not great weekend and something that he'll definitely want to move past. So that's why he's my knock driver. Yeah.
Yeah, we also do a hard luck award. Uh, Not every week per se, but if there's a driver that we feel that kind of got the raw end of the stick, or just something happened maybe outside of their control, um, that just kind of took him out of contention. For me, that would be Kiffin Simpson. I think the start of the race, had great qualifying effort, but getting a top 10 start, but that losing so many positions just on the first lap, I think he got caught out, maybe wasn't ready. Didn't expect it to be that hard of a fight in the first 9 corners of the first lap, but I think that kind of just took him by surprise, and unfortunate for him, was hard to recoup from that. Caitlin, I see you got Marcus Ericsson down as your hard luck here.
This might be a rogue one. Tio did take Colin Herta, which was my original answer. And then I was thinking Marcus Ericsson kind of just had a bit of a tough weekend. In at the start practice, there was quite a lot of high hope for him. He was pretty strong in practice. He was putting in some very good times until he nearly flipped his car in the second practice.
Yeah.
And I think that probably threw his confidence off quite a lot from that almost big incident. And then qualifying, not great. Then they went into the race, and I think he had an issue with his front wing, and kind of just threw him off again. And I think just due to the lack of confidence from the earlier incident and then just the front wing incident, I think it's just been a very hard luck weekend for him.
I went for Gordon Herter on the flip side of that just because of that darn pit stop. And after that, it just all unraveled. So that's if that's not hard luck, I don't know what is.
Yeah, if we're basing it based on pit stop errors, I think we could probably throw Marcus Armstrong in that as well.
Yeah, that's
Lost
worth him.
lost lug nut during the pit stop. That's always very costly. Although I will say that recovery that crew member had uh, was it was the best case scenario for a bad situation. So, but yeah, so we don't have a lot of news outside of the race other than uh, Dennis Hauger and Indy Next. I mean,
2 for 2, dominated
yeah,
again.
yeah, he's led all 79 laps this season. I mean, if there's going to be some driver out there that has a more dominating season than Alex Palou, I think we're going to see it here. Um, obviously part of the Andretti pipeline, and I don't think it's out of the question that things keep going Dennis's way this season. That he's going to get that scholarship and make the move for next season.
No, definitely. I mean, you and I were going to have a talk about this at the end of next season at some point in the not too distant. There's obviously a lot of action coming up, so we'll find a time to do that when we've got a sizable gap. But we haven't forgotten about it, and there is plenty of other things going on in that series aside from Dennis Hauger kind of
Yeah,
refinding himself in a lot of ways. So that we're going to get around to that at some point.
yeah, yeah. We'll have to dedicate a whole episode to that once we get into kind of the dog days of summer. So let him keep doing his thing. One thing I will bring up outside of out of the race is last weekend I did get to go to the new museum at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
How is
Oh,
it?
yeah.
And yeah, it was uh, so much better than I could have imagined. When they
Not saying you
talked
had low
about,
expectations going in.
I did because they kept talking about, oh, there's going to be a lot of interactive exhibits and touch screens. And I'm just like, I get it. You got to make it exciting for the next generation. And I've got 2 kids. I know that, touch screens are where that's what they want to do. And I was very pleasantly surprised. Um, I was fearful that they were going to have fewer cars than they did at the old museum, and I think in some aspects they do have fewer cars, but there's a lot more memorabilia, a lot more old trophies and fire suits and helmets and things that I like seeing at the museum, not just the cars, but uh, the touchscreens were really nice in the fact that I mean they had one big touchscreen that's like 3 foot by 6 foot, where it has every Indy 500 competitor, where you can type them in or pull them up and see their career, and that was a lot of fun. So if you ever get to Indianapolis, well worth checking out the museum there. Although I will say during the bumps in and out of commercial for this race this weekend, they were showing the museum that they have at Barber. That looks like it's probably worth the trip as well.
Yeah, that looks great.
It looks really cool, and yeah, I'll have to make my way down there. It's only 9 hours away. I can probably make that. Well, we have a race coming up again this weekend. Of course, we've mentioned it. We are now into the month of May in Indianapolis. We have the Grand Prix of Indy this weekend, this Saturday. It's a Saturday race, and
I have to remember that.
Yeah, you got to remember that 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, so it's a little late over there. It's gonna be a nighttime race for you. It sounds like.
That's all right. Get a nice beer, sit back, relax.
That's
Perfect.
right. That's right. And then, of course, we'll have a full weekend of qualifying for the Indianapolis 500, followed by the Indianapolis 500, and then immediately turning around and going to Detroit. So this next several weeks, hopefully you guys don't get tired of our podcast. But Timo, it's great having you again. And Caitlyn, thank you so much for joining us, and really hope that you get to join us for more episodes this year.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up for us, guys, and we will see you next week.